Welcome to the Osogovo YouTube channel. My name is Sam, back on Sam Gale Talks episode 5. This is not just any episode though, as I am joined with Southampton legend Matt Le Tissier. Matt, thank you for coming on.
You're welcome, mate.
No worries. So I'm going to firstly start off with how is isolation going for yourself and the family?
My wife will probably tell you I've taken to it far too easily. She says I'm quite good at sitting around the house doing nothing anyway, so it's pretty simple.
So in this chat, I just wanted to get a couple of things from your time in the youth scheme and a couple of questions on your involvement with Balls to Cancer and your ambassadorial role at Southampton. The first question I want to ask, for anybody that doesn't know what the youth scheme was, could you explain that for them?
So I was spotted by a Southampton scout at the age of, I think I was nearly 15. I was playing in a game in Southampton for the Guernsey under-15 team. They thought I did quite well. They invited me over for a trial, which I came across in half-term. And impressed in the trial and was offered schoolboy forms, which was meant I wasn't allowed to train or play for any other professional club. And at the age of 16, when I'd finished my schooling, a decision was then made as to whether or not you were good enough to be offered a place on the youth training scheme, as it was back then in 1985. And I was one of 9 players that got chosen. And from that moment on, I became an employee of Southampton Football Club and made my debut in the first team about 14 or 15 months after that. Brilliant.
So sort of before you got into the first team, was there any particular jobs they gave you, obviously as it was an apprenticeship? What sort of jobs did they give the other players and yourself?
Yeah, so as well as doing all our training, we had responsibility for making sure that all the professionals had their kit ready laid out for them when they turned up for training. We were then responsible to, at the end of training, to pick up that kit, make sure it all got back to the laundry back at the stadium, because the training ground was about 10 or 15 minute drive from the stadium. So we were responsible for clearing up the change rooms after training. When we got back to the stadium, we were also responsible for, before we left, the place had to be spotless. So the home team change room, away team change room, the medical room, the boot room, everything, the weights room, we had like a little gym room, everything had to be spotless before we were allowed to leave for the day at 4:30, 5 o'clock.
Brilliant. That leads on to my next question. Sort of being around the football club, did you come into contact with the first team, obviously, at the time?
Our only real contact with the first team is when we went into their change room to clear up their mess, really, or to give their boots and their training kit before training. So it wasn't a huge amount. Sometimes we would get pulled into a training session to be the opposition in a practice match. But yeah, that was quite rare in those days. It wasn't a huge amount of interaction. Basically, if you were an apprentice, you kind of went into the first team change room to do your job as quickly as possible and get the hell out again. If you were caught in the first team change room as an apprentice, sat there having a chat with them, our youth team manager would not have accepted that very well.
My next question was going to be, what was the sort of response that they gave you? Because obviously I've done a bit of research. Players like I think it was Tim Flowers, he's got quite a personality. I was wondering whether you had any sort of apart from, obviously, did you have any interaction? Because you say it was rare, but do you remember any of the interaction, or was it?
Most interactions were of the pros just giving us some abuse. Really, that was pretty much it. While we were clearing up their mess, so they would throw their gear at us. They'd chuck it all over the change room to make it more difficult for our job. Most of it was just general abuse and what they would call character building.
Of course. And then obviously you had to was it living shared accommodation with other players, or?
No, I was in. That came a little bit after my time at Southampton. We were all in separate lodgings, although there was, I think, Neil Madison and Alan Shearer were in the same house, but most of us were on our own in separate lodgings around the city.
Yeah. Did you sort of gravitate towards any particular teammates or players in the time you were in that youth scheme, or was it more so the first team where you got?
I think in that kind of year and a half, if you like, of being in that youth team, you had mates you were probably closer to than others, but it was like one big group really. There wasn't like little cliques amongst us. We were all in it together, and we were all trying to do our best and make our way in the game. So yeah, I mean, I had good mates, and I probably of those 9, I'm still in pretty regular contact with probably 4 or 5 of them, which is nice after all this time.
Yeah, of course.
So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I don't recall there ever being like little cliques amongst us. It was just we were a group, and we had a really good team. Actually, we actually won the South East Counties League Division 2 that season fairly comfortably, I think.
Who was in that squad? I saw a picture on Twitter, obviously, of some of the players, but that's not my sort of time period. So
old enough to remember. So we had the goalkeeper was Keith Granger, who played a couple of games for the first team at Southampton, but then went to Darlington, had a couple of really bad knee injuries, which curtailed his career, but he went into coaching. I think he's now quite high up in the FA with coaching goalkeepers. So we then had a left back called Alan Tankard, who again played in the first team at Southampton, but played a lot at Port Vale during his career, and Wigan. We have a lad called Steve Davis, who again played a little bit in the first team at Southampton, but played more for Burnley and Luton down the years as a centre back. A lad called Andy Cook, who again he played first team, a few appearances, and went around the lower leagues, played at Swans a fair bit. Then we had in midfield Ian Down, who didn't make it as a pro. Peter Spargo was a left winger who didn't make it as a pro. Greg Llewellyn in midfield, who didn't make it as a pro. And the other one up front with me was Franny Benali.
Brilliant. Obviously, I did a bit of research last night as well, and I saw Chris Wilder's name pop up. Did you have him in the youth team, or was he already in the first team at the time?
So when the first year that I was in the youth team, so obviously there was you were a first year apprentice or you were a second year apprentice. So when I was a first year apprentice, Chris was in the group that was the year above me. So I played in the youth team with Chris for a little while there. Him and the other one you probably know from that time was Phil Parkinson.
Yes,
who, obviously managing as well these days. Another one was Mark Blake, who was in that year as well, who had a decent career. Played at Southampton for a bit, but played at Fulham, Shrewsbury. Went to a few places. Finished playing in France actually. So yeah, there was some good players in that year above as well.
Fantastic. Sort of my last question before we get on to some Southampton-based current players' questions. I just wanted to ask, based on your experience in that time, what was your thoughts when they got rid of the youth scheme, and now it's all different from that time now, isn't it?
To be honest, I enjoyed the time that I did my youth service there, and even though it was tough, and the discipline was right up there in terms of the discipline that Dave Merrington put in place was just wanting you to be of the highest standard you can possibly be.
Absolutely.
And yes, it could be a bit draconian at times, but you lived with that. That's what it was like, and I have to say, if I had my time again, I'd want to do it the same way, because it's it certainly instilled in me a mental toughness that has helped me for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Sort of, did you feel that you were going to get in the first team at this time, or was it taking it day by day and game by game?
Yeah, I probably got in a bit sooner than I expected, if I'm honest. Most players would kind of, they do their 2 years as a youth team player, then they'll have maybe a year in the reserves to kind of work their way up to that standard of being in the first team. And that was kind of what I was expecting to happen. But I almost bypassed the reserve team and kind of just jumped really straight from the youth team into the first team squad. So I was quite lucky that the manager, my manager at youth team level in Dave Merrington, had an unbelievable amount of belief in me, and he was pushing the manager at the time, Chris Nichol, to say to him, look, this boy's ready. He can play in this league now. And Chris, although he did it gradually because he left me on the bench for quite a long time and just kind of dipped me in and out of the first team, he was also very good with me.
So you must have been all right then at football.
Must have been pretty good. I think I scored 59 goals in that first season in the youth team.
If we're counting.
Quite a few games where I had scored 5 and 6s in games in the youth team, so I had a fair idea that I might be quite good at this game.
So moving on to obviously the current team, Southampton, who has impressed you the most? Obviously they've got some good players at Southampton, and they had a difficult start, but they've seemed to have picked up.
Yeah, I mean, Danny Ings has been outstanding for us this season. I think he's been a real plus for us. I think James Ward-Prowse also has come to the fore. I think if you're looking at a player of the season for Southampton this season, I think it'd be between those two. I also think at the back, where there's been quite a lot of criticism aimed, I think Jan Bednarek and Jack Stevens have come on a heck of a lot this season, and I think they'll go on and be even better and stronger next season.
Yeah, hopefully so. Who do you think has the most potential in the team? Obviously, Southampton have got an array of talent with Michael Obafemi and Will Smallbone, etc.
For me, I think Will is probably the one that I look at to really be the next one that a lot of people will be talking about. Obviously, guys you don't want to talk about too much because you want them to stay at your club and not get pinched by the big boys. But yeah, there's some pretty talented boys. Back with Jake, who I think also will be a very good player in years to come. So yeah, we've done all right in bringing players through down the years, but the tough thing for us has been trying to keep hold of them. That's not easy.
Obviously, you've touched upon players being taken from Southampton. If obviously the next transfer window coming up, who do you think Southampton would need to bring in terms of positional? Do they need to strengthen in defence, obviously, with the start of the season?
Yeah, I think we probably need another 1 or 2 top quality centre backs. I think probably a right back as well. At the moment, we've only got Walker Peters on loan, so he'll have to go back. So that's also a position, because we've lost Cedric in that position. So I think that they're probably the main areas of concern with the manager at the moment.
Have you been to many Southampton games? Obviously, you do Soccer Saturday. Have you had the time to go this season to watch them in particular?
Yeah. I still get to go to all the games when I'm not working at Sky. Basically, I still get to go to quite a few. So sadly, it hasn't been particularly great for us at St Mary's this season. Wins have been few and far between at home, and our away form has been a little bit better. And sadly, I was there the night. That fateful Friday night for the 9-0 dropping by Leicester as well. So not a great memory.
Obviously, you say wins are few and far between, but I actually went to go and watch my team Watford away at Southampton, obviously lose. And as soon as we saw that Ward-Prowse goal go in, we were like, oh no. But my last question before we go on to the last part is obviously who would you like to bring back? If you could bring back one player, does Southampton need a Matt Le Tissier or a Sadio Mane or?
There's been some very good players that have left Southampton. If you're asking me if I want to bring one back right now, I'd probably take Gareth Bale.
Well, yes, yeah, he is. I mean, with the array of talent, I say it's more realistic. It's more realistic than Sadio Mane going back to Southampton.
Yeah, I don't know if anything's that realistic these days. Once you've come away, it's difficult to come back. Although, there was some talk that perhaps Adam Lallana might be one player that they could perhaps tempt back at some point. But even that, the disparity in wages is so big that it's very difficult to see a deal like that happening.
Yeah. Thank you very much. The last question I'm going to ask is about your ambassadorial role with Balls to Cancer in Southampton. The sort of things, what do you get up to?
Well, the Balls to Cancer thing has just come through social media. Really, I've been following them and seeing the good work that they do. I've been involved with a few charities down here, and not just cancer charities, but there's hospices and things. And you just, as a person who's been fortunate enough to have, a bit of a platform to use to be able to have a voice in society, I've tried my best throughout my career to try and use that for good and to try and use it to help other people. And that's what the Balls to Cancer thing does. The ambassador role at Southampton is something a little bit different. Obviously, there's a commercial aspect to that as well, where I do work for the sponsors of the club sponsors who want to put stuff on social media and get me to promote things. So that's kind of more work related, whereas the other stuff is just trying to give back to society, because I've been pretty fortunate in my life.
Brilliant. I was looking yesterday as well. You made a player agency with Francis Benyali. Do you still have any sort of interaction with that?
No, I don't anymore, because once I became the club ambassador for Southampton, I had to give up that, because that became a conflict of interest. So that's not something I'm involved in anymore.
That's fine. Thank you very much, Matt, for coming on. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on.
You're welcome, mate.
If you'd like to like the video, if you enjoyed this, please share it on your social medias. Please follow Matt on Twitter. I've seen some of his posts; they're really good. And follow myself. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we will see you in the next one.